What I have inside of this backpack is your typical loadout for an extended day hike, plus a few items that are guaranteed to offer quite a bit of protection as well as insulation. I have with me items that I have specifically chosen for this type of scenario. In the past, I've taken survival products right off the shelf and I brought them out into the forest, and we discovered together that those products are complete garbage. As it stands of 2024, I have yet to test out a good quality survival emergency shelter product. They simply do not exist. Over the years, I've shown you terrible product after terrible product. We've debunked their claims. I have shown you all how these products perform in the real world, and I've explained the science behind why those products perform so poorly. Just as I have done with all of the survival overnight adventures, this is real life, right? I am out here in the forest overnight with only the gear that I have inside of this backpack. And I can tell you all this, every single component that I have with me is very lightweight. Most of these components are inexpensive, and all of them are going to help me make it through this situation safely. The situation that I find myself in today for this episode is a common one. I stepped off of the trail to use the bathroom, and all of a sudden, I'm lost. I cannot figure out how to get out of this forest. I cannot tell where I came from. I'm lost. So the smart thing to do is, as soon as you realize you're lost, is stay put. Staying put most of the time is going to greatly impact the odds of you being found. Those that continue to press on without any idea of where they're going, they're making a big mistake when it comes to being lost in the forest. So if you ever find yourself in this situation, stay put. Do not move. As it stands right now, it is 7:30 in the afternoon. The sun goes down at 8 o'clock, and right now it is windy. And at the same time, it's fairly cool. Temperature-wise, we're looking at 59 degrees. The low tonight will be in the 40s, so it's going to be chilly. A big problem that I'm facing this evening, there's a lot of wind coming through the forest here. So I need to make sure that I'm out of the elements, because it's the elements that's what's going to get you. That's what's going to take you down. So I want to get out of the wind here to a protected place. So I'm going to look around this area. I'm not going to go far, and I'm going to find a protected spot. A spot that is not only somewhat flat for me to lay on later on tonight, but a spot that offers me some protection from the wind. As I'm coming down this hill here, I will keep in mind that I need to go right back up in the morning to get back where I got lost at. This is going to be rather simple because this forest is extremely thick. This is the path of least resistance, so making my way back to that lost point is going to be easy. I have come down the hill here less than 25 yards, and I found a spot that's going to work really well. It is somewhat flat, and I am surrounded by trees. These trees are going to offer a lot of protection. At the same time, they're going to make it very easy for me to set up my shelter tonight. I'm going to do a very quick gear dump and show you all what I have with me for this day hike, and the items that I brought with me just in case of an emergency. Here in this pocket, I have some water. I'm not going to pull that out. In this pocket here, I have my rain pants and my rain jacket, and that's it. In this front pocket here, I have a plastic garbage bag. This bag is not only for my garbage, but it's also a dry place to sit. Let's say if I find a wet log, a wet tree stump, this allows me not only a place to put my garbage, but I can sit on this and stay dry at the same time. I can also kneel on this if I need to. What I have here inside of this bag is a lantern, so I have light to film by. I would not be carrying this if I wasn't filming this adventure. I have a charging cable, a battery pack, and a headlamp, and that's it. Inside of this bag is my cook kit and fire kit. Additionally, I have some snacks. I have some pistachios, which I can barely pronounce. I've always had trouble with that one. I have a fig bar. Here I have a pot and a cup. I have some paper towels, an isobutane canister, my fire kit, which I have detailed in previous episodes, so I'm not going to do that again. I have a spoon, I have some instant coffee, my stove, and an extra lighter. Next up, I have a down jacket. Here we have a face mask, a toboggan, and some gloves. Here we have a sleeping pad. This is very important, and I'll tell you why in just a minute. Here we have a ground sheet, which can also be used as a tarp. Here we have a tarp with 6 lines of guy lines and 4 tent stakes. Here we have a bivvy. Here we have a cordage bag along with some extra tent stakes. Lastly, I have a swag man roll. Think of this as a poncho liner or a blanket. This is multi-purpose, very versatile. At the same time, very lightweight. It looks a little big, but this thing compresses down super, super small. The last component that I haven't spoken about is my chest rig here. Inside of this, I have my wallet, my phone, my keys, camera batteries. I have some Ziploc bags. I have one package of hand warmers. I also have my handgun, which I'm not going to show. I shouldn't even talk about it because every single time I do, I get punished by my YouTube overlord. So that's all I will say about that. Also, I almost forgot, I have a thermometer, which I will set out here in just a minute. As I mentioned previously, over the years I've done many of these survival overnight adventures, and every single time one of those episodes go up, I receive an email or a message asking if I could simulate an injury in one of these episodes. The thing is this, folks, you really can't do that. You can't fake an injury. The simple fact is that you cannot fake an injury and you cannot fake pain, and that's because when it comes to an injury, when it comes to pain, it's going to be different in every single situation based upon the reason and the cause of that injury. As you may have seen in plenty of survival shows and so on, you will have like the main star trying to fake an injury. Let's take Les Stroud for an example. There was one episode a long time ago, I want to say there was like a plane crash or something like that, and he was going to simulate a broken arm. So he took the arm and he put it in a sling. Almost the entire episode, he pretended that he had a broken arm. But the thing was this, he was not in pain. And outside of not being able to use that arm, he moved around freely, did whatever he wanted to. He was taking an axe and swinging it and doing all sorts of stuff, which you would not be able to do with a broken arm. If you were in a situation where your arm was broken, where you were under severe pain, you would not be able to even move. The slightest flinch, a cold breeze, anything and everything would make that arm hurt. By the end of that episode, he ended up taking the sling off because he was tired of pretending like his arm was broken, and he carried on like normal. Not being able to use an appendage for some reason is not the same thing as being in pain. That is why I'm not going to simulate an injury, because I cannot do it realistically. No one can. Here with the channel, the adventures that I do, they're 100% realistic, they're 100% honest. I'm not going to fake anything. Just like with this trip here, this is 100% honest. I am out overnight with what I have with me. As it stands right now, it is 8:25, and folks, the adventure is certainly underway. The location that I've selected here, it's not perfect, but when you're in the outdoors, nothing is perfect. It is relatively flat, that's good. Again, I have these trees here, they're offering some protection, and at the same time, I'm going to be able to connect up to these to set up my tarp shelter. Speaking of my shelter tonight, once I have everything set up, I will go over why every single component is super important and why it's going to increase my chances, the odds of me surviving a night out in the forest. And it doesn't matter the type of scenario that I'm in. Maybe I'm lost, maybe I'm injured. No matter what I have inside of this backpack is going to assist me with surviving. And I need to mention this. This kit was put together for the conditions that I face this evening. The emergency survival kit that you have with you needs to be based upon the conditions that you're likely to face. This kit here is not going to help you in a wintertime situation, but for early spring, it's right on. As the seasons go by, my kit changes, it evolves, and yours should too. As you all can hear, it's quite windy. Luckily, the place that I've selected here offers a lot of protection. This, my friends, is going to be a very long night, that's for sure. Anytime I do one of these survival trips, they're never fun. They're never easy. Even with the equipment that I have with me right now, it's not going to be easy. The thing is this, folks, the gear and the equipment that I have with me, it's not the same as a backpacking loadout. This is bare minimal. Each one of these components is very, very lightweight and amounts to almost nothing. This pack weighs almost nothing, which is what you would expect with a day hike adventure. I'm talking about an extended backcountry adventure, a trip where you're out in the middle of nowhere. I'm not talking about a short little trail close to town, nothing like that. I am out here in the middle of nowhere. While I put myself in this situation is without a doubt 100% real. The temperature, everybody, is definitely dropping. I'd say it's in the lower 50s, maybe the upper 40s right now. Here in a second, we'll check on the thermometer. I took it out of my pack here, put it on that tree, and it's just dropping right now. You know, folks, there's one thing that I cannot simulate, and that's like fear, right? I have spent so much time in the outdoors that I have no fear of the night, of being alone, deep in the forest. But if you're in this situation, you might be. And that's just something that you'll have to like grab control of. Not only are you going to be very anxious that you're lost, that you didn't make it back to your vehicle, you're going to be thinking about what's in the forest. You're going to be thinking about what is going to prey upon you tonight. The odds are extremely high that there's absolutely nothing out there. The most important thing that you have to do if you discover like you're lost, you have that epiphany, you're lost, you're not making it out of the forest, you have to stay calm. Don't flip out. Don't be rash. Don't go running off. Stop and think. I've mentioned this before in previous episodes, and I need to say it one more time. It is so important that you keep control of everything about you, right? Keep your wits, stay put, don't overreact. Everybody handles fear and anxiety differently. So you may not cry, you probably won't, but you never know, right? Some people do. That's just how it goes. I've told the story about myself being lost a number of years ago in the forest. I've told it so many times, in fact, I'm not going to tell it again. You can go back in the previous survival adventures and hear all about it. The thing is this. When I discovered that I was lost, it hit me like a ton of bricks. It was exactly like hitting a wall. All of a sudden, boom, that light switch was flipped. The anxiety hit. I realized that I was lost. I could not get out of the forest. Anxiety, fear, that fear of unknowing is worse than anything else. That fear of like what is going to happen, what is going to prey upon me, you know, that sort of thing. Hopefully that situation, that scenario never happens to you, but if it does, it's going to hit you the exact same way. All of a sudden, that switch will be flipped and you're going to be looking around, you're going to be thinking, uh-oh. It's at that point that you need to stay still. Take a knee, stop, think, calm down. You know, stay put until you can think clearly, and then come up with a plan and react. Well, I tell you what, folks, it is time to begin setting up my shelter. As I go about this, I'm going to explain what each component is and why I have it. So, this here is the ground sheet. Think of this as a vapor barrier between my bivvy, my sleeping pad, my sleeping bag, and the ground itself. This is going to stop not only some cold from coming from the ground into my sleeping pad, into my sleeping bag, into me, but it's also going to block moisture. This is very important. At the same time, I can use this as a makeshift tarp if I need to. With this tarp, that's pretty self-explanatory. You can use a tarp above the tree line. You do not have to have trees to set up and use a tarp. You just have to have knowledge. Cordage bag with some tent stakes, self-explanatory. Sleeping pad. This is going to offer me some protection from the cold ground. You have to consider, folks, there are two main components that are going to kill you in the outdoors. I am talking about conduction and convection, and this is the simplest way to explain these two aspects. Conduction is the transfer of heat through contact between objects. When you lay directly on the cold ground, heat is conducted away from the body to the ground itself. To prevent this heat loss, you need some sort of barrier between you and the cold ground itself, such as a ground sheet and a sleeping pad. Convection is the transference of heat from air or from a liquid. Think of the cold air around you, the wind, the rain, the snow. That's what I'm talking about. To prevent convection, that's why you need some sort of barrier, such as a tarp or a bivvy. Speaking of the bivvy, here you go. This is it. This is going to block the wind. It is going to block the rain. It is going to prevent convection. At the same time, it's going to hold in some heat. And lastly, we have our insulation layer, in addition to our clothing and our jacket. I'm starting with the barrier. Now I'm moving over to the bivvy. Now I'm moving over to the sleeping pad. We have the ground barrier, the bivvy, the sleeping pad. Now it's time for the blankets. This is a very versatile piece of kit and really is a staple item of my emergency kit here. As you all can see here, I have my site set up for the night. The ground sheet, the bivvy, sleeping pad on the inside, then we have the blanket, and then we have the tarp over the top. Basically, this is being utilized to block the wind, and if it needs to, it can also block the rain. At any point in time, I can change the orientation of this tarp here to suit my needs. Alright my friends, I am now underneath the shelter and inside it. As you all can hear, it is crazy windy. But luckily, this tarp, it's blocking just about all of the breeze. So the wind is coming up this way, it's going over the top of the tarp and away from me. So right here, I'm good. So this is offering protection, so is the bivvy. I have the blanket. The sleeping pad, as I mentioned before, is very important because that's separating me from the ground. If I was just to lay down on the ground, I'd be freezing cold. Now, of course, there are things that you can do. Collecting natural insulation to separate you from the ground takes a ton of work, it burns a ton of calories, and oftentimes it won't make sense. So if you could carry an ultralight sleeping pad, it's going to do you a ton of good. Now, let's talk about having a fire in an emergency survival situation. You may think to yourself, oh, if I get lost, the first thing I'm going to do is collect a bunch of firewood and stay warm all night long. Now, you may get lucky, right? You might be in a forest and there's dry wood everywhere to burn. If so, again, you're lucky. But that is not a guarantee. You cannot count on anything that's not a guarantee. So you may hope to have some dry firewood to burn, but don't plan on it. That's why you need the proper gear to get you through the night or nights. Now my plan, everybody, is to go to sleep. I'm actually pretty dang hungry, but I'm going to save my snacks for tomorrow. If you are stuck in a survival situation, you want your supplies to go as far as possible. Luckily, here in the mountains, there is water everywhere, so that's not a concern. But food would be an issue. You need to know this, folks. I'm not comfortable laying on the ground like this. In fact, it's quite uncomfortable. At the same time, I'm not terribly warm either. The thing is this. This is about survival. This is not a camping trip. It's not about being super comfortable. It's about being as comfortable and as warm as possible with a very minimal loadout. It's about making it through the night or nights with a realistic loadout, right? What I have here is lightweight. It's realistic for a day hike, an extended day hike. It's not overkill or unrealistic in any sort of way. What I have here makes sense for a day hike, for that just in case survival emergency situation. So everyone, I'm going to call it a night for now. I'll bring you all back in just a little bit if I don't fall asleep. I really hope I do, but I don't know. We'll see. As for an update, folks, it's about 11 o'clock. I've been laying here for a while. I'm beginning to get tired, but it's fairly uncomfortable. I took the backpack and I'm using that as a pillow, and that's helped quite a bit. But just laying here, listening to the wind. You know, talking about my setup here, the tarp is definitely doing its job. And I have to say, everybody, I'm actually quite warm. With the jacket, the blanket, with the sleeping pad, and the bivvy. You can actually see it on my face here. I'm a little bit flushed, and that's because I'm quite warm. The ground is uncomfortable. This is not really all that pleasant, but it could be so much worse, that's for sure. When you compare this to just about every single emergency shelter, emergency product I've ever tested out, this is 1,000 times better, 1,000,000 times better. I mean, it's not even close. As far as the temperature goes, it's right around 49 degrees. I'm not entirely sure how cold it's going to get tonight. Mid-40s, something like that. It will be interesting to see if I get really cold or not. I mean, I planned on being like somewhat uncomfortable, and again, that's okay. Survival's not about comfort, it's about not dying. When you're putting your kit together, you'll have to think about balance. It's all about balancing the amount of weight, the amount of gear, the amount of space that it takes up, what you need, what you don't need. There's a lot to think about when it comes to your kit. And the thing is, you have to think about it. Nobody can do this for you. Do not go out and purchase an emergency kit that's pre-made. Those are completely garbage. You need to put your kit together so that if you go out on a hike, if you're going out on an extended hike, you need to be thinking about what you're going to need to make it through the night in the conditions that you're going to face. I could talk about this all night long, but I'm not going to. Everybody, I'm going to try to get some sleep. I will update you all in a bit. Good morning, everybody. It is a little bit after 12 o'clock, and currently it's beginning to sprinkle. It continues to be incredibly windy, but at the same time, the clouds are rolling in. We're up here in the fog, and there's just a little bit of moisture falling from the trees right now. Unfortunately, I do not have any service, so I cannot tell if there's rain coming in or not. All that I know is that I'm fully protected underneath this tarp. I'm doing good. So far, so good, I should say. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. As far as the time goes, it is now 6:11, and we made it through the night. I have to be 100% honest. This was not bad. Like, it wasn't perfect, but it was not bad at all. As far as an emergency situation, this was the best night's sleep I've ever had, bar none. I mean, absolutely without a doubt. As far as the temperature goes, we're looking at about 48, 47 degrees. It is raining out here just a little bit. It started a little bit after midnight last night. The sun is coming up. And now we need to think about getting out of this forest. The thing is, everybody, you don't ever want to be in a situation like this. If you're smart, you take the time to plan, and you have luck on your side, this should not happen. Getting injured is something else entirely, but getting lost is something that really should not happen this day and age. In fact, it's becoming more and more uncommon because technology is becoming better and better. Every single one of us carry around an amazing GPS unit right here. We all have the ability to download maps right to our phone instantaneously. It's super easy, very inexpensive, and that could be the difference between life and death. At the same time, if you have an iPhone or some Chinese phones, you have built-in satellite communication. So if you ever have an issue, you could push a few buttons and help is on the way. That is pretty amazing technology. With that being said though, it happens, that's how it goes. Folks, it is time for a cup of coffee. It is not time for a lecture. My friends, cheers everybody, cheers. Oh man, that is so good. That is exactly what I needed this morning. It is starting to get light out. And that pretty much means, everybody, this adventure is coming to an end. By the way, I do not have a cold, but I do have some raging allergies. It is springtime here in the mountains, and there is pollen everywhere. And you could hear it with my voice. Usually by the afternoon, I sound a whole lot better, but that's how it goes, folks. Oh, man. As far as this shelter goes, this is tops. This is a system that I put together that would work in this environment. Let's say if I was heading out into the desert, my loadout could be different, you know? The most important thing here is that you need to plan, you need to prepare, choose the items that you're going to bring with you wisely, and again, just don't get yourself into this situation. Things happen though. The world's an imperfect place, sometimes we skip steps, and that's just how it goes. With that being said though, you do not want to be in a situation like this. You do not want to be sleeping on the ground like I did last night. This was not a camping trip. Even though it may have looked like one, it really wasn't. This was quite uncomfortable, but with that being said, as far as any emergency shelter ever, right? This is 100 times better, 1,000,000 times better. The bivvy that I brought with me is fantastic, and what makes it so special is the fact that it's fabric with mesh up at the top so I can zipper myself up in it, and I'm 100% secure. At the same time, This fabric has not been treated with like a PU or silicone or anything like that. And that means it's breathable. So I was inside of this bivvy all night long and there's no moisture inside of it. Because it's not waterproof, I needed something like this, my tarp. If you're going to use a bivvy, you're going to need a tarp anyways. Every single component has come together to do its job. I made it through the night and I could continue making it through the nights. Cheers to that, my friends. Cheers to that. Well, folks, I think it's time for me to wrap up this episode. Because the subject matter is so important, I like to keep these episodes nice and condensed and to the point. So my plan is to begin packing up. And luckily, in this situation, I can go home. In real life, you couldn't. You would still have a great deal of stress and burden on your shoulders that you would have to deal with. Remember, folks, don't put yourself in this position. But if you find yourself in this position, stay put. Do not try to self-rescue unless you are certain of what you're doing. I mean, 100% certain. You do not take any chances when it comes to this, ever. My friends, we are done here. I want to thank you all very much for joining me for this episode, this important episode. I hope you all have learned a lot. It doesn't take much to survive an emergency situation, a survival situation, but you do have to have the right gear, the right components. Those components will mark the difference between life and death. Everybody, I'm out of here. I'm gonna have to put the camera up because it's raining. Take care, be well, strength and honor, be safe out there, folks. Until next time.